a team like Tampa Bay, and they controlled that game for a lot of it. They just didn't score goals.
Now, you're touching on a lot of the things that are leading me right into the next thing I want to ask you about because the head coach in Columbus, John Tortorella, he's got a reputation, obviously, that speaks for itself. And you talk about motivation and you talk about consistency. And these are things that kind of always speak a little bit back to coaching. So, how has Torts been kind of handling this season? I haven't seen any meltdowns on the Zoom conferences, so I'm curious how he's kind of been dealing with the season.
He's had a couple times when he's snapped here and there, but nothing big. Nothing, nothing that's gonna raise eyebrows for
Right.
some of his previous work in that regard. This is a very frustrating season for John Tortorella and his assistant coaches, his coaching staff, because one thing that I feel like that is, if I were to list strengths and weaknesses, perceived of this coaching staff, right near the top of strengths coming into this season, I would have put ability, like flexibility. So even though they have developed a certain style the last couple of years of how they like to play, and it's defensive, you mentioned that earlier. This is my fourth season, I think, third or fourth season, covering this and this team, and I feel like until this season, I feel like they did a masterful job of taking a roster that was given to them. Every team has roster turnover every year. We know this. So every team is different, and every team has to win in sort of a different way sometimes, unless you bring almost everybody back. And, this is the only year where I felt like they have just struggled the entire year to get through to newer guys who are on the team, to get them to play quote unquote blue jacket hockey and find an identity. I know that's a cliche that's used quite a bit, is find a identity, but this team in general, this team especially the last few years, that was big. Like it took them a while. They've had struggles in previous years too, but they always found their identity eventually, and then it was really good, and then they went on a run, and this team just has not done that yet.
Yeah, and you think about some of the guys that they've lost in recent years. Obviously, some of them are here in South Florida, and Bobrovsky and to a lesser extent, Alex Wenberg. But they've lost some superstar players, and the train just kept on rolling. So that's kind of what makes this year so surprising.
Yeah, and it's interesting to bring up Wenberg, because I think they were probably going to buy him out anyway, just because the production wasn't there for when you compared it to what his salary cap was, over $4 million a year, and he had, I think, 3 years left on it or something. So it kind of made sense. And this was when they bought him out, that was the last time they could do it and actually get a really good cap savings out of it. And so it made sense to buy him out. Now, that said, he was one of their centers. It's another guy who could take faceoffs. Another guy who, he's not dominant in the faceoff circle by any means, but he's an experienced guy there. He was an experienced guy. He was an experienced part of their penalty kill. He was one of their main penalty killing forwards. He was really good at that. And let's face it, he's a playmaking center, and he knows how to kind of drive play here and there, more so than some of the guys that they have now. He had more experience at it. So he's one of their centers that's gone. And, you come into this season, and Pierre-Luc Dubois, that whole situation blew up on him. That was your top center. So now you're missing two centers. One of them's in Florida, the other one's in Winnipeg. Yes, they got Patrick Laine back, but he is a winger. He's not a center. And Max Domi was brought in here. They traded with Montreal. They traded Josh Anderson, a big, strong, power forward winger type guy, right wing. Traded him to get Domi, and Domi was supposed to be the second line center. So they were supposed to have Dubois and Domi, and then figure it out and then Mikko Koivu, they had signed him as well to be the third line center. Well, Mikko Koivu retires after 7 games, and Wenberg got bought out, and Dubois wanted out of here, and he played his way out into a trade. Now that's your top 3 centers. They're all gone. Bing, bing, bing. And I think that's been part of the problem of trying to get out of the defensive zone, is that they don't have a lot of experience at center right now.
Yeah, and in terms of those defensive issues, we're talking right now to Brian Hedger of the Columbus Dispatch. I know you mentioned Patrick Laine and bringing him in. You bring in a Patrick Laine, and you bring in even to a lesser extent Max Domi. these are not guys that are known for their defensive play. And John Tortorella, it'd be like the same thing bringing them to the Panthers. I'd be scratching my head like, why are you bringing somebody in that doesn't really fit into what Q is trying to do? And I got that same impression in Columbus and what John Tortorella does. I mean, you look at Patrick Laine, I think he's got like 1 goal in the last month. Like, it just makes no sense. Like, what's been the issue there? I know Roslovic got off to a great start, but now they're both just kind of meandering along.
Yeah, in Roslovic recently, he's playing center as well, and that was an opportunity that he wanted to get. That's why he wanted out of Winnipeg, because they have a bunch of centers there, and he wanted to play center. So he's getting the opportunity for sure here, but it has not gone great in terms of, some of the defensive coverages, some of the, I guess I would call it being a little careless with the puck here and there. And then Torch really has a problem when he's had a couple turnovers, and whether he could actually physically get back to defend the turnover or not, like whether it's going the other end, he just doesn't look like he's even willing to try, and that drives Torch insane. And it would drive every coach crazy in the NHL. You have to at least look like you care that you just turn the puck over. So I think there's an issue there with Roslovic a little bit. He's young, he's going to have to work on that. Laine is interesting because Thursday Tortorella reworked his lines again, and we saw a combination that we've not seen yet, and that was Eric Robinson at left wing, and that was Max Domi going back to center of the second line, and putting Laine on the right side. And they actually, they clicked like right away, and it was the first time that I can really, I've covered this ever since Laine came over here, and I haven't seen him make a difference 5-on-5. Like he's had a couple games where power play sets up in that left wing with that big one-timer, and if he can get it off in time, and he can really cause some problems. You're like, wow, that guy's an impact player. But 5-on-5, he hasn't really done a whole lot, and he stands out because he's a very big guy. you can't miss him. But because of that, it looks like he's lumbering and slow and, not getting to where he needs to get to score goals at 5-on-5. And Thursday, it looked for the first time like, okay, they might have something here because Domi is back to playing better at center. They're moving their feet, as the cliche goes. They're skating a lot faster. And I think it helped to put Robinson out there because nobody talks about Robinson because, he's been the kind of a bottom six guy, but he can really fly. He can really skate. And when you get those, and so can Domi, so you get 2/3 of that line really going. I think that Patrick Laine had no other choice but to kind of stay up with him if he wanted that puck.
As Brian Hedger for the Columbus Blue Jackets, for the Columbus Dispatch, covers the Columbus Blue Jackets. Excuse me. Brian, I want to thank you so much for coming on and sharing your insight with us. And I won't be there tonight, but I will be there tomorrow. I look forward to seeing you in the press box.
All right, sounds good. Just say hi.
I will, brother. Thank you so much. Brian Hedger.
All right, take care, David.
All right, buddy. Brian Hedger from the Columbus Dispatch. Great insight into this weekend series. On the other side of the break, we're going to talk to Aaron Portzline about some of the former Blue Jackets that are on the Panthers. You heard us talking about Wenberg there. We'll talk about Bob, Nuchavara, Bill Zito. We'll get into all that on the other side. Hey, over the last 30 years, South Florida fans have always been able to count on one radio show that gives you the brutal honesty you need. Orlando Alzaderi and the Onside Zone daily from noon to 3 exclusively at OnsideRadio.com.
You're listening to Chirping the Cats Radio with David Work. Take Onside Radio, your home for soccer everywhere, with a MyTuner radio app. Find the app at OnsideRadio.com. South Florida's home for real sports talk.
Hey, it's Big O for EJD Construction, your custom home builder, additions and home remodeling. Our lives have changed. We're making our homes more of an oasis. Call the right place. Call the right people. Eric at EJD Construction for over 16 years. A-rated member of Angie's List in the Better Business Bureau. 305-433-4843. That's 305-433-4843 for EJDconstruction.com.
There are those who dedicate themselves to a sense of honor, to a life of courage, and a commitment to something greater than themselves. They have always defended this nation and each other. They still do. The few, the proud, the Marines.
If you missed Red Card Radio with Austin Robillard, then you missed this.
Beckham and Moss made it seem like it was the most important thing in the world that they had to talk about the academy and bringing up players from the academy to play for Inter Miami. And, well, they've not only done it, they've now done it in abundance. First, it was Felipe Valencia. And in a question asked about Felipe Valencia, David Beckham specifically mentioned another name in Ian Frey. This was now, in hindsight, a complete foreshadowing of what was to come this week, because Ian Frey has now signed as a first-team player for Inter Miami. Ian Frey also signed alongside his former teammate from Fort Lauderdale CF, Edison Escona.
Red Card Radio with Austin Robillard every Saturday 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. exclusively at OnSideRadio.com.
This is the story of a very special woman. In a matter of seconds, she turned herself into a great mathematician or an entrepreneur. Her knowledge was limitless and still is. She could also make monsters disappear, especially those that lurked in the shadows under the bed. Once, this woman put back together a teenage girl's broken heart, which had been shattered in 1,000 pieces, just by giving her a bear hug. She masqueraded as a regular person at work, but as a superhero at home. Everyone knows her as Gabriella. I still call her Mom.
Your hero needs you now, and AARP is here to help. Find the care guides you need to help, complete with tips and resources at aarp.org/caregiving. A public service announcement brought to you by AARP and the Ad Council.
With Make-A-Wish, the impossible becomes possible. A girl battling cancer can become a race car driver battling the course. The boy showing all the nurses his fire trucks can take the helm of a real one. Wishes can give kids with critical illnesses the strength to keep fighting, get better, and grow up.
Where there's a wish, there's a way.
Wishes need you. Visit Make-A-Wish at wish.org.
Every 2 minutes, a woman in the U.S. is diagnosed with breast cancer. And in that split second, her life changes forever. The toll of breast cancer is great. The need to support those who are battling the disease today is even greater. We're fighting alongside patients because we know one moment can change a lifetime. United by hope, we can end breast cancer. Join our fight. Save lives.
Welcome back to Chirping the Cats Radio. To reach out to David, send a text to 844-416-8123. That's 844-416-8123. Here's David Dwork.
All right, we're back. Chirping the Cats Radio, coming to you live from Inter Miami CF Stadium. Man, we've got a great guest coming up here. I'm going to dive right in and get into it with Aaron Portzline, who covers the Columbus Blue Jackets for The Athletic. Aaron, thank you so much for taking a little time with me this morning.
Yeah, my pleasure. My pleasure. Good Saturday afternoon to you, or morning, I guess it is still.
Yeah, still more. It's early, right? Not used to being up so early and so functional. You got to love being a grown-up, right?
It's you. Good on you.
So the first guy I want to ask you about is, as I told our listeners, I wanted to bring you on the show today to kind of get your take on some of the former Blue Jackets who are now with Florida and playing a pretty big role in their success. And the first guy I want to ask you about is Alex Wennberg. Now, I don't know what the expectations were coming in because Florida was able to get him fairly on the cheap compared to for I guess the contract that he was signed to in Columbus and the expectations that would come with that. But I think he's playing pretty well after having a tough year last year. He's got 8 goals. He's contributing on that second line, helping drive play, and really just playing a solid center role, and that's something I know Columbus could use right now, right?
Yeah. What a turn of events it's been. Wennberg is a fascinating topic in many different ways. The Blue Jackets moved on from him when they did, because that was sort of the final window where they could buy, because of his age, where they could buy him out at, if I'm remembering, a 1/3 rate rather than 2/3. So their problem with Wennberg, though they had some problems with Wennberg, but the biggest issue became his $4.6 million salary. They would love to have him at the price the Panthers had him at. And I think that is even more true
now, when you look at how the Blue Jackets center position really has fallen to pieces, they thought, obviously that Pierre-Luc Dubois was going to be here for a long time. They thought Max Domi, acquired from Montreal in the Josh Anderson deal, was going to be their number 2 line center, maybe even push Dubois as number 1. Well, that has not gone at all as planned. Dubois now plays for Winnipeg. Domi's just now getting back to the center position after spending most of the season on the wing. And good God, the third center here, Mikko Koivu, retired after 7 games. So that center has just been a vacuum for them. And so Wenberg certainly looks better in the rearview mirror than he did when he was here on his way out. You know what? Really like the kid, and I think everybody in Columbus, there's nobody that holds a grudge against Alexander Wenberg. He was a very well-respected player here. I think he changed, his game changed, and not for the better because of some head injuries he had, including one by his now teammate Patrick Hornqvist. But I think everybody wishes him well, and I think I speak for many in saying I'm glad and happy to see he's having a really good season so far with Florida.
What do you think his ceiling is at this point in his career? Obviously, a second-line center with like maybe half point per game is solid. But this is a guy who, he was a former first-round pick. He did sign that pretty big deal in Columbus. Is that kind of production still something feasible, do you think, for Wenberg? Or are we kind of seeing what his game will be at for a while?
I think that's up to him. It's in him, certainly. He was a 59-point guy for them for the Blue Jackets the year before they signed him to that big deal. Looked like he was a budding number 1 centerman. He took a huge headshot in the playoffs from Tom Wilson. As I mentioned earlier, Hornqvist got him back of the head, and I think his game has changed. One of their frustrations with him here with John Tortorella was they wanted him to play with the puck in traffic more. They wanted him to bring people to him and not get rid of the puck so fast. As a way to open up the ice. He is first and foremost. If you get nothing else out of Alexander Wenberg, nothing else, you have an incredible defensive player on your hands. A Selke Trophy worthy player in terms of he is just never out of position on the ice. Now, part of that is I almost think he's too well positioned sometimes. You want him, if you're a coach, sometimes you want him to take more chances to create offense. But he just never leaves himself out of position. And, watching the Blue Jackets play, and Max Domi played with Line A the other night, it looked pretty good. It's only one game. But you can't help but think, boy, Patrick Line A could use Alexander Wenberg because he's a solid defensive player, pretty damn good playmaker. But I don't know if he ever gets back to the 60-point guy, just because his game has changed so much, I think, because of some injuries.
So the next guy that I did want to ask you about is somebody that we haven't seen a whole lot of here in South Florida this season, and that's Marcus Nucciavara. Whether it be a slight injury or just the way that the Panthers have seemed to be collecting defensemen like bottle caps this year, Nucciavara has not cracked the lineup a whole lot. He seems to be a solid defensive defenseman, but I was, kind of looking forward to seeing what he could bring on the offensive side of it, and we haven't really seen it to this point. Can you really think of any reasons why he would need to come out of his shell a bit?
Well, I think the injuries have affected him, and I have not watched him play a lot this year. The thing with Nucciavara is he is the difference in a puck-moving defenseman and / offensive defenseman. I think he's a puck mover, but not an offensive defenseman. I think his best trait is getting the puck out of the defensive zone. And the thing they loved about him here is how, when he got the puck, he looked north. And the puck, he could bust a guy open with a 65-foot, 80-foot pass out of the defensive zone as well as anybody on their back end, and that includes Werenski and Seth Jones. But I don't think he's a average player NHL-wise from the red line in. His shot, frankly, is a bit of a cotton ball, and I don't think he really has a one-timer. He just doesn't think of himself as a dangerous offensive player. But the kid can move a puck. I think that's what maybe holds him to third line duty in the NHL. But pretty good player if he can stay healthy, and I think he may just need to get beyond the injuries before his real game resurfaces.
Yeah, and what you're describing, it sounds like a perfect fit for what Joel Quenneville is doing down here. A guy who can take the puck out of the D end and push the pace. That's like his favorite word is pace. And I mean, it sounds like you're describing like a Keith Yandel, but that can actually play defense in his own end, that can move the puck as well. So hopefully we'll see Nucciavara turn a corner, because it sounds like he can offer something that would really fit in well with Coach Q.
Yeah, he's a serviceable player. But if you have a guy in your third pair that can zip the puck out of your own zone quickly, I think you're a happy coach. I mean, for a lot of teams, the third pair, especially in the salary cap era, is you're sweating it up. You're sweating it out pretty good when those guys are on the ice. And I think that's certainly been the case in Florida the last couple of years. Ask Bobrovsky. The defense has been an issue. I think it's been the forwards defending as much as the defensemen defending, actually. That's gotten a ton better this year.
Yeah.
But when you have a guy in your third pair that can move the puck as well as he does, and I'm talking passes up the middle of the ice. I'm talking he has that uncanny ability to read the carom plays and spring guys, puck off the wall in the neutral zone, the caroms perfectly to the guy in stride. When he's going good, he can do all of those things. Panarin loved being on the ice with him, because Panarin's when he was in Columbus, was one of those first guy out of the zone type guys, and all he needed was a half a stride, and Nucciavara could get him the puck.
You did mention Sergei Bobrovsky a moment ago, and I wanted to ask you, because obviously Bob he's playing better this year than he did last year, and I've kind of joked that was the bar.
No question.
Heading in, that okay, as long as he has a better season, then we're making some progress. But it seems as though, like, in terms of elite Bobrovsky, like Vezina level Bobrovsky, that's been a few years removed to this point since we've seen that level of play. Even before his last year in Columbus, he had the great playoff series against Tampa, but that season was kind of so-so. Do you think that, in terms of that level Bobrovsky, you think that's a thing of the past now?
I don't think it has to be. I just think he's in a different situation. We say all the time that if you want to find a really good hockey coach, find out who his goalie is, because that's usually what determines it. And I think it works with goalies that way too. If you want to see a really good goalie, see what the play's like around him. Not that they're all the same, because they're not. But if Bob left an environment in Columbus where you look at that defense, his last couple of years in Columbus, his last year here was a turbulent ride with all of the, is he going to stay? Is he going to go? You remember he got suspended for leaving the bench. That was just a weird year, right from his training camp comments that forced everyone to pick their jaws up from the floor. It was bizarre, but look at the defense that was here in Columbus. When you think of Ryan Murray playing on the third pair here in Columbus, that gives you an idea of how deep it was here. The forwards checked too, and again, I think that's a huge part of it. It's not just the defensemen who defend; it's all over the ice. This was an exceptional defensive club, and taking absolutely nothing away from Bobrovsky, because he was part of that. But Bob knew what the puck was going to look like in his own zone. He knew that his steak was going to be cut into small bites each night. And then he gets to Florida, and I think by all accounts that team was defensively a disaster last year. He didn't know when the puck was going to be out of the zone, if it was going to be out of the zone. He was seeing different shots. He was seeing many more odd man rushes than he was used to seeing in Columbus. And I think they're much better this year. I think Bob's better this year. But I just think the Panthers play a more open style than Columbus did under Tortorella. And so maybe he's not going to have the same save percentage. But I do think he's dramatically better this year. And a big night for him being honored for his 500th NHL game, oddly enough, before the Blue Jackets play here in Florida.
Coincidence, right? Just a coincidence.
Yeah.
We're talking to Aaron Portzline of The Athletic, who covers the Columbus Blue Jackets in the NHL and does an amazing job. Aaron, the last thing I want to ask you about before I let you go today is Bill Zito coming to the Panthers. It seems like every move he's made has been a home run. From the first thing he did of bringing in Patrick Hornquist for Mike Matheson to this week signing Spencer Knight and as well Matt Kierstead and just really seems like everything in between. Are you surprised by his success?
Well, I'm not. No, and it's interesting you used the phrase home run because I don't know if you're aware of Bill Zito's baseball past. He used to be the bat boy.
Oh, yeah.
That's right, the bat boy for the Milwaukee Brewers. I don't know if you knew that or not. Great story.
From the inside the Panthers that's been showing down here, yes.
No, nice. Okay. I'm not. I mean, Bill has seen the business from a million different sides. An agent first, from within the organization, as now GM. He is an outside-the-box thinker. Almost to maybe more than any other NHL GM is. And he's also a lawyer, so I think he looks at the CBA. He looks at the CBA and sees things that aren't explicitly explained rather than things that are, which is what a good lawyer does. And I'm not saying he does anything untoward at all. He doesn't. He just thinks the game in a slightly different way. I also think it's a touch easier when you come into a situation where you've got so much talent like that. And I think the first step is the easiest, is to get this team up to, the respectable level. This team should be playing a lot better than they are. So you shore it up. I think now come the hard moves. And this is what most organizations struggle with because it's not easy and it's not an exact science. But this is a guy that I think a lot of people in the league have been curious to see what it would look like with him as GM. I think there are people who thought he could have been GM earlier than he was. And I can't get it out of them, but I'm almost sure Jarmo Kekalainen and Bill Zito have side bets on these games, these Florida Panthers, Columbus Blue Jackets games. Maybe that's a story that will be told after the season.
It'll be interesting to find out how it plays out. But Aaron, thank you so much for coming on the show today and providing your insight. I really do appreciate it, and I hope to talk to you again in the future.
Okay, sounds good, guys. Thanks for having me.
All right, buddy. That was Aaron Portzline from The Athletic. We're going to hit the break real quick and talk to Austin Robillard of Red Card Radio on the other side. You're listening to the only locally owned sports station in South Florida, OnsideRadio.com.
The Cats Radio with David Work. Take Onside Radio, your home for soccer everywhere, with a MyTuner radio app. Find the app at OnsideRadio.com. South Florida's home for real sports talk.
I'm Ryan Seacrest. When you call 911 and ask for help, first responders show up. Now, let's show up for the people who show up for us every day and every night.
Go to firstrcf.org to learn more.
My daughter Brinley is here at St. Jude. Coming here was literally life or death, and it was so scary. But St. Jude is fighting for one goal, like this one mission, life. And that gave us hope. We haven't received a single bill from St. Jude, so I really can just focus on what's best for Brinley.
Finding cures, saving children. Learn more at stjude.org.
On the battlefield, there's a saying America's military men and women live by. Never leave a fallen warrior behind, ever. Off the battlefield, Wounded Warrior Project operates with the same goal. Wounded Warrior Project was created to help our men and women returning home with the scars of war, whether those scars are physical or mental. Wounded Warrior Project. We never leave a fallen warrior behind, ever. Learn more about what we do at woundedwarriorproject.org.
If you missed 4th and 20 with Toast and Marsh, you missed.
It's so rough being a Yankee fan. It's so rough. It's so hard, I know.
Oh, it really is. I mean, they haven't been. I was there in 2009. I was in New York the last time that they went to the World Series. It's been a long time now for them. And no, they're the Phillies of the AL. They brought the band back, and what did they actually do? Kluber any better than Tanaka? Like, is their pitching any better, or are they just again relying on the health of Giancarlo Stanton and Aaron Judge?
Oh gosh.
4th and 20 with Toast and Marsh, weekday mornings from 8 to 10.
Hey, hon, what you doing with your phone? Taking pictures?
No, I'm asking it questions.
Like what?
Hey, Bobo, do flowers have best friends?
I'm sorry. I'm afraid I don't know that.
Hey, follow me. I want to show you something. Look, flowers do have best friends.
Whoa.
Some answers can only be found in nature. Discover the unsearchable. Visit discovertheforest.org to find a trail near you. Brought to you by the United States Forest Service and the Ad Council.
A message to help keep you safe. If doctors told us today that we'd made a breakthrough on COVID-19, saving thousands of lives, we would rejoice. Finally, a good news day. We'd feel less afraid that our loved ones would be struck by the invisible enemy. We'd start to feel hope that we could live our lives again. Well, a mask does all that. We can help protect others by covering our noses and mouths, which is how the virus mainly spreads. Masks are a ticket to freedom, to be out in the world, to getting together, back to work, back to doing what we want. If doctors announced we could save lives today, we would grab that breakthrough with both hands. While we wait for a vaccine, grab the breakthrough that's already here. When we're out, it's masks on.
Brought to you by the Ad Council.
These are unprecedented times, challenging how the YMCA works to strengthen community as we have for nearly 170 years. But we've always found ways to help people and communities in times of crisis. Right now, Ys across the country are providing emergency childcare, shelter, food programs, and outreach to seniors. But we can't do it alone. Whether you're connected to the Y or have a fond Y memory, we need you to stay with us. Reach out to your local Y today and stay with us for a better us.
Welcome back to Chirping the Cats Radio. To reach out to David, dial 888-441-4623. That's 888-441-4623. Here's Florida Panthers insider David Dwork.
All right, wrapping up another edition of the Chirping the Cats Radio show. Joining me now for a quick crosstalk is Austin Robillard of Red Card Radio. Austin, good to see you this morning.
Good to see you as always, my friend.
All right, so club football is back, and it seems like there's some pretty big games on the slate you're going to get into. What do you got?
Yeah, we have a title race game in France, PSG versus Lille. Both teams top of the table, tied on points, like 8 games left in the league. Ooh. Huge game, and if PSG lose the league for the second time in like 5 years, it's just going to be mind-blowing because we know how much money they spend.
Yeah, they're like the Yankees over there, right?
Right, they don't stop winning. But it's like that in a lot of leagues. You have the Juves, you have the PSGs, you have the Bayern Munichs. Yeah. Bayern Munich's taking on Leipzig today, another not really a title race game, but both it's number 1 and number 2. So a big
Bayern's
game.
got that big lead, right?
Yeah, it's a big league. So it's really nothing they're going to give up. And also Chelsea lost today to a team that's going down in relegation. They lost 5-2. 5-2.
Man.
It was a bad
roller coaster year for Chelsea.
Honestly, another manager. They were doing so good after international break. This happens to them. I saw a stat that the team they played, West Brom, 31% of the goals they've scored all season have been against Chelsea.